Kasus startup seperti eFishery kembali menyoroti pentingnya transparansi dan kepercayaan dalam dunia teknologi. Bagaimana startup bisa berkembang pesat tanpa kehilangan kepercayaan investor dan publik. Bloomberg Technos Podcast Technozone bersama Pandu Sastrowardoyo dan Jean Daniel Gautier.
Welcome to Bloomberg Technos Podcast Technozone. I'm Pandu Sastrowardoyo, your host, and today we're tackling a critical issue in the startup world, trust and transparency. Startups are supposed to be the engines of innovation, but what happens when financial misconduct starts seeping in? We've seen a wave of scandals in Indonesia, from Industri to Tanihub, and now eFishery, a company that allegedly inflated its revenue by IDR 9.76 trillion in just 9 months. Major investors like Temasek, SoftBank, and Northstar were misled. And now the industry is asking, how deep does this go? Investor trust is plummeting, the regulatory scrutiny is rising, and if things don't change, Indonesia could lose its standing as a startup hub in Southeast Asia. So what's the real cost of these scandals? And how do we rebuild confidence in the ecosystem? Now, to break this down, I'm actually joined by two incredible guests. First, we have Frank Hutapea, a leading legal expert and lawyer who has worked extensively on corporate fraud cases. Frank, welcome.
Thank you.
We also have Martin Terpolowski, an investor and the CEO of Bumi Varta Technology, someone who's seen firsthand what happens when trust is broken in the startup space. Martin, great to have you here.
Thanks for having me.
And of course, we're also joined by my co-host, Jean Daniel Gautier, who brings a sharp entrepreneurial perspective to today's discussion. Danny, welcome.
Thanks for the opportunity.
All right, so Martin, let's start with you. When you see a case like eFishery, what's your first reaction? Does this sort of shake your investor confidence beyond just one company?
Yeah, of course. Because first of all, unfortunately, when you hear about things like this, I think depending on what you've done in the previous background, it wasn't a huge surprise to me.
Okay.
You talk about the number that they've exaggerated their figures by, right? Which is such a crazy number when you look at what their business does. Right. So again, if anyone who knows me or has been talking to me for the last few years, I've been multiple disagreements with the people in the VC world, saying that a lot of this doesn't make a lot of sense. Either they're paying for revenue in a lot of cases, like we've seen in the gig economy, trying to make it look big, but then pass the problems on to retail. At the end of the day, all the IPOs have crashed because the businesses were losing huge amounts when they IPO'd. Most retail investors don't understand that. Right. From someone like myself who spent nearly 20 years in Tokyo and Hong Kong in institutional finance, a lot of the numbers don't make sense. And that's not just across the board. You look at the numbers and you think, well, really, that revenue, and some of these companies that are reporting revenue bigger than big companies, big, huge companies. The valuation game has gone. I don't know who to blame for this because, it's hard for me to believe one person in Bandung is responsible for this. And I know a lot of people like to say he is. I think it's probably the tip of the iceberg. I think we're hearing, with a few people have spoken out in the last few weeks, but I think a lot of the VCs have been very quiet on this. Because again, my network, who's more hedge fund guys and investment bankers in listed securities, a lot of them have been like, well, these numbers in Indonesia, mate, really? And I'm like, yeah, it's not easy to understand. So I don't know. It looks, from my perspective, I'm looking at, I think there's potential issues with the companies, and I think it needs looking at now, and maybe this is a great time to make a change and actually start facing, some of the issues that happen. But either people have been on the Kool-Aid too long. You've got to understand how it's got to a situation where all these great minds have been conned by one guy and his mates. That sounds quite difficult for me to believe. I believe there's a much more of a chance of everybody trying to, whether they knew or turned a blind eye, I'm not sure, but everybody wants to keep getting more investors in next round, spend the money. The culture is the problem. The culture is the problem. It's not about making it. Everybody now likes the word sustainability. I remember talking to VCs when I started this business. People laughed at me because I was doing B2B. Okay. Takes too long, can't make money quick enough, blah, blah, blah. I'm here now, just hired another 15 people, no tech winter, no debt. Okay. Yes, it takes time, but we do it properly. Yeah. And the numbers we can make from large clients like Pertamina Telkomsel is nothing like the figures these guys are coming out with. So I'm just doing the math. So yeah, I think there's a lot of pressure to keep talking this unicorn game, to get all these B2C businesses to become unicorns. It's very, very difficult in a country where you've got a 4,700, everyone talks about GDP, but
Right.
GDP per capita is important
It is.
for B2C and MSME businesses. So
Yeah.
a lot of stuff hasn't really been thought out, I don't think. So
Right.
my reaction was no real surprise. I'm quite surprised there's not been more.
Right. In fact, you called it, right?
I did call it, yes,
Yeah.
multiple times. Some of my VC friends will be watching this, but yeah, I've talked to multiple people and said, guys, at some point, the only reason we're not having this conversation about some of the big boys is because they IPO'd already,
I guess. So.
and the problem went to the retail investor.
Yeah.
That was the plan of most of these people until the IPO market closed up. There is a reason that Singapore government did not allow Grab to list. Singapore government did not let their retail investors get host. There's no way they're going to allow it. So they SPAC'd it, right? And it's down 80%. And the SPAC market is basically for stuff. Grab is a proper company, kind of, but the SPAC market in general is for Dodge. It's recognized, it's for Dodge, right? It's for stuff that normal markets won't take. And Grab had no choice because they wouldn't do it there. So yeah, I think there needs to be a facing of reality now, and I think there's going to be layers dug into this of how many people really knew these figures were unlikely. How many? Because if I can work it out, and other hedge fund managers and the head of Nomura Equities can work it out, how come all these local experts can really not know what was going on? So I think not everyone will know, but I think there'll be more people who will know, because having met several people involved, it's just hard to believe that one or two people can do this. And if you look at the underlying numbers, they are so big that there would have been multiple questions.
Right.
Hang on a minute, you have to keep asking the person, how have you got to these numbers?
Right.
How have you got
not see it.
You could not. Again, you would think, but the numbers that we are talking about are so huge that a company doing what they did, claiming that they can get those returns, is questionable. Again, when you talk about a lot of the peer-to-peer lending, peer-to-peer lending has been a disaster all over the world. So I don't, it's a problem. It's a problem business, because you're lending money to people who don't have money, and yes, and a lot of the state-owned enterprises are heavily invested in peer-to-peer lending. I did a podcast a while ago with what's it called, the CEO of MDI, and they're heavily into peer-to-peer now. Is it? I think the question is going to be in the future, and Frank will know more about this than me. Should state-owned enterprises be investing directly into startup businesses, because they are high risk businesses, and should a state-owned enterprise be investing heavily into peer-to-peer lending businesses? When there's a lot of questions. Again, I'm not the expert in this, but I do think the ripple effect could be quite substantial, and certainly people are questioning Indonesia. Everyone I talk to goes, well, eFishery. Outsiders, the people who don't live here.
Right.
So my partners are Japanese mainly. I lived there many years. Everybody's talking about it, and it's not a good look, is it? It's not a good look.
Is it just painting Indonesia with a wide brush, or is it is it something really systematic going on?
I think it's systematic, yeah, because I think it's not the first and it won't be the last. And I think a lot of the companies have exaggerated. There's two things that have happened. The companies have raised hundreds of millions of dollars, have paid for revenue to look big. To look bigger than they are.
Sure.
Anyone can pay for revenue. Anyone can do it. If you open an office and you are basically swapping 50,000 rupiah notes for 100,000 rupiah notes, you get a revenue of several $1 billion quite quickly. And unfortunately, that's what's happened to get a lot of this. It's all been promo driven. Every client, you've got lots of clients, but you're losing every client. How many clients are active? How many are making money? You talk to some guys at other startups, they claim to have 35,000 clients, but only 300 active. You know what I mean? There's so many like this, and they've managed to get their valuation off the number of people in the country. I think the realization has come now that the number of people in the country is not really the issue. It's the buying power of those people. Because again, we're going about Apple, right? Singapore's just as big a market, if not bigger, for Apple than here. But a lot of it, I find, the saber rattling is for the domestic audience, because I don't think outsiders. Well, Tamasek obviously did, but I don't think outsiders really believed a lot of this anyway. I remember talking about the unicorn IPOs, and it was universal amongst my friends who work in investment banking that there was only one way this was going. And it wasn't up, and of course, it's 90% tells you that's the correct. And I think that would happen to any of these guys who list, because once you get the numbers out there, the numbers just, don't add up. And you can't keep on saying, oh, we're going to make. The trouble is, the minute you stop paying for revenue or cooking the books, you can't raise any more money.
Yeah.
So I think it's a cycle.
I've got a good question for you guys. Also for Frank. So basically, you've been telling us that this is a systematic problem, right? This is a systematic problem. Yeah. So systematic. It's a problem of business culture, right? When you look at the things, the first logical thing you'd think is a matter of punishment and incentive, right? The carrot and the stick. And of course, when you're thinking about lack of accountability, when you're thinking of fraud, you're thinking of sanctions, you're thinking of consequences. Well, there are consequences for the market, right? And there are consequences for whoever committed those frauds and displayed this lack of accountability, right? How is it? What is the actual effect? What are the actual aftermath here in the region, like in Indonesia? I think Frank would be able to enlighten us on this. It's like, so how does it go? Like,
Actually, every year we have a new scam. I only focus
On the big one.
I only focus on the ones that OJK issued a license.
Oh, okay. All right.
Okay.
Okay. So this is interesting.
Every year we have new scam. Robot trading,
Okay.
binary trading, Indra Kens,
Right.
Tony Salman, all those stuff. Do I blame the investors? No,
Not entirely, right?
because there were no license in the first place. After that, we have Industri.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, we have all of other things similar to Industri.
He had a very nice office. I went.
Yes,
You did?
and
Yes.
there was no specific license. But for Tanihub, Tanifund, and Industri, there is an OJK stamp.
Okay. All right. Okay. So they
So-
actually got the stamp for it. And
Why I was so loud about this? Because to be honest, from the investor side, from the big funds, the reason why I'm speaking out is I care about the small people.
I agree.
Of course.
Okay,
I agree.
Because
Retail.
why? The retail investors, they trust the label.
I agree.
They trust the OJK label. Okay, so when I saw the president on 3 January, I was actually giving him my wedding invitation.
Oh, congratulations,
Okay.
by the way.
congratulations.
And he came.
Oh, good.
Okay. But while I give my wedding invitation, I give him this exact 2 files.
That's quite an invitation.
Oh,
Okay.
okay.
Okay, these 2 files. Okay.
That's
This is what I said to us. OJK products license that been created noise by the victim who has money stuck.
Okay.
That could be the focus of this new presidency
Right. Right. Of course,
Right.
because the image of a leader.
of a new leader.
Yeah.
Everything is here
Right.
is publicly available information in Google. There is no confidential information here.
Right.
Here. Okay. And here about Tanihub. Okay. I have no problem with this guy. He followed me on Instagram. Okay.
Yeah, but does he like your post?
He never. He asked for my number.
Oh.
We know the same people.
Sorry, can I have that? Can I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
more of that? Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Everything
Alright.
here is publicly available information. Nothing is private. Okay. Why? Because there is an OJK label to the product. That's all. There are people who have their life savings there.
Yes.
20 million rupiah, 100 million rupiah.
Yeah.
Because they trust the government label.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's really not a laughing matter.
For the
Yeah.
Industri robot trading, I blame them, the investors.
Okay.
You didn't check the licenses.
Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Speaking about this, I feel that the protection for the investors are disgusting.
Indonesian protections,
The government protection,
the government protections. Okay.
especially from the pimpinan OJK, from those who are in charge in OJK.
All right. Okay.
Okay. Why? Because you only focus on gimmicks. Okay. You only focus on making them DPO list. We don't care about he's in DPO or not. We don't care if he's in red notice. We care about getting their money back. And my question is, why until today, the OJK investigator never engaged PPATK?
That's interesting. So first of all,
PPATK is an independent body
just explain to.
that can work based on request from the law enforcement to do full finance investigation.
Okay. Now, don't they actually have mechanisms in place for
They
registration?
have, but they haven't done it.
Okay. So in the case
Not
of
that I know of.
okay, not in the case of Industri and not Tanihub and not.
Yeah, they only focus
eFishery.
on after I went to the media that I've reported to the president.
Sure.
Suddenly yesterday they declared Adam Gunadi red notice.
I see. Okay. Okay.
2 weeks ago I text him. I don't know him, but I asked for his number. Boy, balik, boy, come back Jakarta. They're looking for you.
Yeah, fugitive. Yeah.
Okay.
So could we say that actually, like this eFishery?
Okay. eFishery is
Yeah.
funny. eFishery actually not part of the authority of OJK.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
But in February 2023,
Okay.
OJK claimed authority
Right.
by declaring eFishery in their what do you call it, list illegal, investment illegal list.
Okay.
On May they withdraw it,
They withdrew it
not
after not
because they are saying they are not under authority, but they are saying the license is enough.
the license is enough.
I have the article,
Okay.
I have the picture, I have everything. It's everywhere on Google. Everything I know is from Google.
Interesting.
Okay, so the moment OJK, Satgas Waspada Investasi OJK, claimed that eFishery was once in their illegal investment list, and they withdrew it because they are saying that the license that were already there was enough, meaning they still have responsibility over it.
Because they declared after.
Declared it.
It's enough.
Nah.
Yeah. Okay.
And I hereby request the police investigate eFishery, not because of the investment. Because why? Because I tell you basic criminal law. As long as the investor do not file a police report, the police can investigate because it's called delik aduan. Meaning
Delik aduan,
it's only investigation based on reports.
Okay. Okay.
But because of the alleged fabricated books, it has been damaging and it will be causing a lot of retirees. Meaning there is a public interest now.
It's a public interest.
So the police can do laporan informasi.
Yeah, but I think the
Go
question is, and again, there's different kind of investors here. I agree.
Yeah.
I totally agree with Frank. People should be careful with all these scams. Anything that looks too good to be true usually is.
Yep.
These people have lost the savings on these scams. It's very sad news.
It is.
When it comes to the fishery investors, they're all institutional investors.
Right.
So,
Right.
so for them, I think there's a reason they haven't. There's probably a reason they haven't asked for a police report. Why are they not asking for a police report? Because, as I say, I don't think they're as daft as people. I think a lot of people are involved in pushing the revenue numbers up to get. Look at the year before Go to listed. They wanted money from Abu Dhabi.
Yeah.
We just don't. It's all public. They're all listed now. But come on, they raised that much money, 800 million or something from Abu Dhabi the year before to keep going for one more year, and then dumped everything on retail. And that wasn't a good look for Indonesia either.
Yeah,
it's not fraud. I agree, but there's two things. It's not fraud, but fraud's terrible. But I think the pump and dumping here is viewed terribly overseas. The pump and dumping is getting ridiculous here. And for this, the VCs are very involved. If this guy at eFishery is the man, the brains behind it, he will argue, I had no choice. I was pushed for Series D, Series E, Series F. Now, I think it's more likely that a few people knew and like, right, we'll give you some more money. You've got to get that revenue. You've got to get that revenue. We've got to get that number out there.
Right.
Because, as I said, that number was always too much for people who didn't even know.
It's growth at all costs.
It's growth at all costs. And you mentioned a gentleman before, and I won't mention his name, but we've had these discussions. It's growth at all costs. all they care about, they were very proud about it, all about unicorns. That's all they care about. They're not, they don't, the sustainability is the last 2 years.
Right. Yeah, it's not
Everyone's talking about sustainability now. The problem is, what they've invested in is too late. Because they've all got massive fancy offices in Ashton Tower and stuff, and they've got too many staff. They can't unwind their positions. So eFishery is just one company, I believe. You will see a number of companies that are who without more funding, they're dead. So in the past, they'd probably talk to the VCs and go, get some more money at this val, and then we'll get some foreign investors in later.
Right.
But now that game's over, because the local VCs are sat there now going, we can't help this anymore.
Right.
But how did that monster get created? This eFishery started in 2013. Unusually to Indonesia, those guys were not part of the elite. Nearly everyone involved on the other side is part of the elite. Somebody's cousin, somebody's sister, somebody's son. They all know each other. It's a boys' network, the VC world, and it got too big. The funds here are too big. Just give you, my friends run a very successful Japanese equity fund, which they closed at 500 million. These guys have got 20 years experience in the market. Anything over 500 million, they believe will stop them having the opportunity to make better returns. Here, you're raising 500 to a billion dollars for unliquid assets, right? So it's a huge VC funds for the size of the market. And once they get that big, they can't write tickets for 2 or 5 million anymore. So they're just following on into the same investments, the go-tos, their booklet
how the game works, yeah.
And that's how it works. So then you've only got, in the last couple of years, where could these guys invest? They had a choice of unicorns and unicorns. So they raise money overseas because they're never going to get performance fee here because they're all doing terrible. So they just get the fund bigger and bigger and bigger, take the 2% over 10% fees. They've got to be responsible for some of this. They take the 2% fees, and then once they get to a $750 million fund, whatever they are, some of these funds here, or $1 billion fund, which is, as I said, is too, even in listed equities, is a bit too big, cumbersome. In illiquid assets, they've got to go into the big boys. So they can only write tickets. They can only write tickets for eFishery or for,
So it's not just the startups that are like grow at all costs. It's also the VCs.
The VCs are the biggest causes, particularly with this one. This eFishery one's particularly interesting because they're not part of the elite.
They're not.
Most of the startups here are a mate at the VC, and a guy who wants to do a startup. They have a conversation of how we can get this going. They went to Jakarta International School together.
I'm an alumni.
Well, of course you are. No doubt there. But that's the point. It's just a group of small. And the other problem you've got here is, of course, lawyer different. You've got to have proper qualification to be a lawyer, whoever you're related to. Not the same for investment management. None of the people here could get a job in Singapore, Hong Kong, running a fund. That's the problem. None of them have got experience. The guy you mentioned before, the first job in finance was when they were 35. Running a state-owned enterprise VC, that's nothing personal against the people, but it doesn't make sense. So if you look at my personal friends who run some of the biggest hedge funds in Asia, they're in the 50s. They did 20 years at an investment bank before they got the money, but they're not somebody's kid. This idea that just because you've got an MBA from Pepperdine or something, that you suddenly can be a world championship fund manager, it's very, very hard to be a sales guy like I was. It's very, very hard. But
you're a sales guy?
I was a sales guy, yeah.
Okay.
But to be on the buy side and to be successful, it's very, very hard. And that's guys with experience. So we've got here guys who are not experienced, and everybody's on the Kool-Aid, right? Some of these unicorns now have got their own VC arm. Right, the next they want to become a VC next. So basically, everyone people are forming companies for totally the wrong reason. And again, I don't think eFishery was. I think they formed it for the right reason.
They did,
People
right? I was actually wondering about this. Like, there are two alternatives, right? Like, whether they started this as a con, like even from the beginning, or they were trying to do something good. And
once the VCs get involved, the target numbers are too high. They wouldn't.
Because of the
You've
target
seen
numbers.
people writing books about unicorns. All they talk about is unicorns. This market still, from a B2C perspective, with the GDP per capita is not big enough to have all these companies that are worth so much money.
So question for both of you, gentlemen. You may fight over who gets to answer. So basically, what you're describing here, right, is because of a lot of common factor. Indonesia might be a big bubble bath, like bubbles being created and bursting every year or something like that. my personal point of view as an entrepreneur is that I tend to agree with you that the chase after unicorns is something a bit silly, and resting on valuation that are only based on the share price instead of the sustainability and the viability of a company might be risky. So unless I completely misunderstood what you said, what alternative would you provide? What alternative approach would you provide when trying to study the market, trying to study the startup company that need investment, and Frank, what regulatory avenues would you have in mind to actually provide a framework for this kind of approach?
I think the law is already there.
You already have
In
laws, right?
Indonesia, the law is never the problem. The problem is the enforcement.
What are the issues with enforcement, though?
What's the laws affect?
Okay,
What's
so-
the laws affecting the VCs? Is that? I mean, what's the law? I mean, there seems to be very little regulation around that world. I mean, I was in that when we were in listed securities in Japan and Hong Kong. It's highly regulated, right? What you've got to have every year update your licensing, and there seems to be very little. I mean, people just come if you've got the right connections, you just parachuted into director level at these places. What is the protection? I mean, again, it's institutional, right? People who put money into the VC funds are taking a risk. It's a massive risk to put it in.
Of course.
So it's a different kind of investor. So I don't necessarily feel sorry for that. Feel sorry for them, because I think if you give money to people with hardly any experience or track record, just because they've got a family member in Indonesia, it's kind of your own fault. But the concern more is the damage it's doing to the reputation of the country and stuff. As an investment, of all the jobs that are getting lost now of people who've been trying to do the right thing, we're getting lots of that from eFishery. And the end game, unfortunately, for the IPO market, I think that needs to be regulated better, allowing these companies to just dump onto retail.
Just for our audience, like what are the mechanisms in place, basically, like for Indonesia for the governments, like government agencies, to ensure that at least like the startup is actually doing the right thing, like the accounting. A lot of the things that eFishery has done is creative accounting, right? Like things like that. Like do you have, I don't know, sandboxes? Do we have like a way to check? Obviously,
It's not about sandbox. I think the OJK, as a financial supervisory, can instruct their investigator to check one by one the unicorn, whether the books is actual. Would
that be scalable though?
Well,
I mean,
it is scalable. Look at what's happening with eFishery now. That could have been prevented ways before, because the OJK has its own investigator. They don't have to use the police.
But I tend to feel that I think it's a open secret in some respects.
That's why. The problem.
It's an open secret, so people they don't want to enforce it because they know it's not good. What they should do is tackle the problems now and come out the other side.
that's what I was angling at.
But
Like,
you've got to tramp over some big names.
Okay.
There are big names up to here in this. Names that I won't give you now, but there is big names up to this. And I mean, again, how many of these people who have overseen mass loss-making companies end up with great jobs?
That still happens.
End up with yes. End up with now. I've got it's people say, oh, it's not very nice. It's nothing personal, but I don't think. What do you call him? What's the guy from? What's he called? The guy who did WeWork. I can't remember.
The WeWork guy.
I don't think he. I don't know. Donald Trump's the boss now, but I don't think he's gonna necessarily be hugely popular in America in the same way, because a lot of people see he holds a lot of investors, right? And here it doesn't seem to matter. There's very little accountability.
I think they need to introduce a new POJK where to initiate a VC you have to have a license.
Okay.
Why?
Okay.
Why? So one of the co-founder of Tanihub now has his own fund.
Of course he does.
How does that make sense?
They all do, don't I mean? This is they all talk now. Everyone sits there and talks about the guys who were involved, not in frauds necessarily, but again, there's two things: there's direct fraud, and there's pumping and dumping. To me, pumping and dumping is not doesn't make you a hero in society.
Yeah, but the problem is with pump and dump. Until today, there hasn't been anyone incriminated for insider trading in Indonesia? Criminally?
There has never been.
No.
That's
Well,
interesting. Okay,
again,
but there are
because-
laws for insider trading, I assume.
There is.
But
Okay.
again, it's again because it's the same people.
Yeah, but
The people are untouchable.
Okay.
A lot of the people are untouchable.
the problem with pump and dump is harder to prove that insider trading. Insider trading, you can get exact evidence.
Yeah.
WhatsApp
Right.
chat,
Of course,
Sure,
of course.
you know, like the SEC.
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
of course.
Even the easier one, they haven't found anyone.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Have there been no whistleblowers or like
Yeah, but
for these
I don't
companies?
think anyone, I would know
All right,
if
interesting.
they would
So,
anyone have been incriminated for insider trading.
This is interesting when you're talking about pump and dump. Tangentially, I'm having one simple, stupid question. Do you think that currently, either in Indonesia or globally, the current investment trends are too based on sentiment compared to what they should be? Too much hype, too much, yeah.
Of course.
Yeah, but at this point, do you even have a future in
Ooh.
Indonesia for the startup industry?
Well, I mean, this is the thing. I mean, that's even more brutal than me. I think that there can be a future. I think there needs to be a whole redressing of the situation. The biggest problem is there isn't enough what I would call investment professionals running businesses. A lot of it's who you know, what you know. And that's been the same. A lot of the startups that have been funded, not eFishery, but a lot of startups have been funded between friends. Between friends, and it's been very lax as in what's going on. Basically, there's a lot of cut and paste ideas from Europe, or the US, or even India. They cut and paste it, they bring it here, they have their friend, and the friend will fund it.
Right.
I think it's pretty obvious. Most of the founders in Indonesia are selling their shares as soon as they can.
Yeah.
Why do you think every single founder? Last time I went to see my private banker in UBS in Singapore, I walked into one of the founders of a so-called unicorn in Indonesia, who is still at the business. The company's never made $1. How much has he paid himself? I'm not quite sure, but you need $5 million to open an account. Things like that. They're all selling the shares, opening up VCs. That's just normal. It's just normal activity, and people don't frown upon it. People are still at all these conferences. The people who have been involved with a lot of these pump and dumps are the people on the stage being asked to speak. They are the people you cannot. There's certain people's names I cannot say on here now who are heavily involved with all of it, and you cannot touch those people because they are the elite of the elite. And
Right.
and I think that's the problem in the startup world here. If you look at the listed world, there's a lot more checks and balances, and big companies like Astra and stuff.
Right.
There's a lot more, but that startup world, and even when it comes to the BUMN, the amount of money gone into businesses that literally don't make sense if you have got any kind of investment background, it's quite scary. So number one, how did these people get into the position they're in? The problem is the law, as you say, will not be enacted because are you going to take on a family member of some of these people? It's hard. It's hard because look around the VC world and look at the main names and everything, and you'll see they're all connected. So taking it on is very hard. I mean, I've been told on several occasions. Luckily, I'm not from this world, so I didn't know who these guys were related to until somebody forced to tell me. So I don't know, right? So I've been quite open when I have debates with these people, and people have said, "Oh, you can't say that. That's his uncle or that's his dad," and I'm like, "Well, I'm only debating with him." But people don't. It's you go to any of these conferences, Deal Street, Tech in Asia. These guys are cheered on. No one looks at the fact that the company that they started is now worth 10 cents in the dollar, while all the retail have lost their money, while they've started their own VCs. There's so many.
Is there hope for Indonesian startups who actually want to go the VC route without actually, going through this culture that we've been talking about? Is that possible even?
I don't know. I mean,
They need to return the money first for the retails. So you said an example.
Yeah.
Like I think if these people are smart enough to think, if the money is returned, I'll probably shut up.
Okay, no, I'm talking about new startups.
No, that's what I'm saying.
Right.
The moment you set an example for the bad actors,
Oh, okay.
then you can
Okay, all right.
open a new chapter.
So they need to be an example.
There needs to be an example.
Okay.
They need, I think the eFishery thing is very interesting because when they dig over the layers, it's going to be interesting to see really in the realities how.
I'm actually in talking period with some of the investors of eFishery.
Oh, you are. Okay.
Okay, because they were about to appoint me.
They were about to appoint
me.
Okay.
against Gibran.
Okay.
But after I talked with them, they were saying that he's still in cooperative stage. I said the moment he is not giving back to the company the money that whoever was stealing, whoever were missing, I said you should criminalize him for falsification of the books.
Well, let's get this right here. It's not stolen money, is it? He's just been making the.
He's
They've just
making
been
up
making up
revenue.
they haven't stolen the money. They've just made it up so they can raise more to unicorn and unicorn and unicorn.
I heard there were some reports that there were also money that were paid as bonus for fundraising and so on.
I've seen that. Yeah.
Okay,
I've seen that.
okay,
But,
so
but,
that's it.
but I think again, I think it happens. I think it's from my experience. I think the easiest way to know is nobody wants to talk to you if you don't agree with them.
Yeah.
I've been pulled off TIA conferences. I've been pulled off everything. People don't want to talk to somebody who's not a yes man here.
Oh,
There's
TIA, Tech in Asia. Okay,
Yeah,
sorry.
there's what do you call it? There's loads of things like, people.
You're a contrarian, and they
It's
don't
not
want a
contrary.
contrarian.
For me, it wasn't contrary. I mean, I remember doing something with the Ken a few years ago. If you Google the Ken contrarian in my name, you'll see it. And at that time, they were really interested in the fact that I lived in Indonesia and worked in Indonesia, had my own company in Indonesia, but I did not understand what these guys were talking about, and I didn't attend any of the events because to me, it's just echo chamber. It's just it's just a lot of backslapping, and they all hang out together. You don't see these guys, to be honest, at big business events. I don't see them at the events I go to with the CEOs of HSBC and stuff. I never see them. They keep themselves to themselves because they know anyone who's got a long time history in business outside Indonesia will question them.
So is it all a cabal of these people?
Probably.
All right, that's an unfair question.
Okay, so back on the ground, right?
Yeah.
I'm a aspiring startup founder today or tomorrow maximum, not much time. What do I do if I don't want the big bad VC to eat me raw? If I don't want to just go and agree with everyone, but if I also want to get investment, and if I also want my startup to succeed with the help of someone who actually cares for whether I'm doing well or not, what do I do? Where do I get help as a founder now? Here.
It's tricky, isn't it?
There is a saying in Indonesia. Once you are in deep shit, once you need help, then you start questioning your idealism.
All right.
Okay.
So, if you really serious about achieving your startup, then do not talk about idealism.
Okay.
Are you telling us that? Well, this is
being
quite the
honest.
implication. I mean,
Interesting.
like
don't
being
know what
idealist,
you-
like
I'm being honest.
I want to keep to my best practice.
Because what you see so far is the amplification of what he said.
Yes. I think there's. I mean, this amplification. I mean, for me, I have my own company here, but luckily, I was in a position where I didn't need the VCs because I'd worked for 20 years in finance, and I have a very big partner from Japan who we're personal friends. He's a hedge fund manager, but he's investing his personal money with me, so we invest together. But yeah, I always ask this question. We've even discussed, me and my partner, about starting a venture capital here because there is so many clever people with good ideas that are not pumped up because they don't have the connections. They're not part of the elites. There is so many. I mean, I go to something like that West Java conference in Bandung and talk to a lot of smart people. They're never going to get anywhere because, again, everything here it goes through stages. It's everything. They finance the back out of everything. A few years ago, it was cloud kitchens. Now, no one in their right mind can have really thought that everyone was going to spend the rest of their life inside you after COVID. No. But they've got so much funding for cloud kitchens, all gone. Even Go Kitchen and Grab Kitchen have closed. A stupid idea. Even for these, they even raise loads of money for the vaccine places.
Oh, the vaccine places, yeah.
They raise loads of money for that. And then the year after, it's MSMEs. MSME finance. I'm sick of hearing it. Everyone talks. Impossible to make money out of people.
No AI.
Anywhere in the world. Oh, now it's
Yeah.
AI. Yeah,
Now it's AI, yeah.
Now it's
That's
AI.
worldwide,
I
though.
mean, it's a
No, it's
a
AI.
hype cycle.
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, the thing about AI is the most
AI
ridiculous.
is a bit different.
Well, the thing is
Yeah.
about AI, it is different, but the problem is people don't use. We've used machine learning and AI since day
Since
one.
day one, yeah.
It's practical usage. It's not a new
Yes.
phenomenon. But we have practical usage, not just to make your writing look
Right.
different.
I wrote an expert.
If was using AI as well as it did.
Well, yeah, they could, every
Okay, so I wrote an expert system in 2007, which was many years ago. Expert system is like a simple AI, a different
Yeah.
approach. And yeah, that's true. Like, I mean, now it's back, but like I went through AI winter, and AI winter was really bad.
Yeah, but you say it's not a new phenomenon. Using it for proper, we use it just basically for like we have lots of data and we make predictions based on that data.
Right.
So it's got an actual use. But
Right.
everyone's just wrapping everything in AI now. You know, there's people like you go to a restaurant and you're not allowed to look at it. You've got to now use your QR code so the AI can predict what you want next time.
There's a difference between technology implementation and buzzword integration.
There's also an issue between technology people want and don't want.
Right.
Because most of the MSME stuff has been proven not to be wanted. They went round to the MSMEs, these guys with mass sales teams, they paid people, they raised hundreds of millions of dollars,
Sure.
paid people to actually put their app on or use their software. I mean, some of these guys invested millions of dollars and got like, I saw one company had raised $80 million and last year they lost 20 million or something. I mean, you couldn't make it up. You couldn't make it up. And that's because they basically give free stuff to everybody.
Right.
They just went around paying customers to get it, to blow up the numbers, right?
Right.
And there's nothing there. Nobody wants the software. If you give it for free, this is the worst thing. A lot of these guys give for free.
Right.
And then in a year, they go back and want to charge $1 a year. And the people still don't want it. So it's kind of crazy. It's kind of
no need for it.
It's no need for it. And also the other thing that people have got to understand when you're talking about financial inclusion. Sorry, there's a reason that the big banker, the richest man in the country, didn't want those clients. That's not disruption. He didn't want those clients. And there's a reason that a lot of MSMEs want cash because they don't pay tax. You know what I mean? So it's some of the problems were not problems, they just didn't need solving.
All right. We actually have to close really soon. I'm just going to give Frank just a bit of a wrap up as well. Like, what do you think needs to change for Indonesia?
I think what needs to change is, I'm not speaking about globally.
No, just
I'm
Indonesia.
speaking about supervisory.
Oh, supervisory. All right.
I think they need to change one of the OJK director
Oh,
to change to someone who the president will appoint,
okay.
who is in charge for the supervisory.
All right.
Okay, and from there, I believe there will be a change, because there is a saying that cannot change if the instruction doesn't come from the top. The instruction must come from the top. You need to check someone from outside OJK.
Interesting. All right.
Put them, and then you see, it's all about gimmicks. You return the money for Industri and Tanihub, the people will shut up.
It's a lot of money though, boss.
Yeah,
It's a lot.
50% is better than zero, you know. You know what I mean? At least something.
Yeah, because the trouble is, there's two sides to this. There's the side who lost all the money right there. I feel sorry for those people.
I'm talking about the retail.
Yeah, the investors were part of the problem, in my opinion. But the
Definitely.
retail people who've been hammered, it's
Definitely,
a horrible
This
situation.
is horrible situation.
Right.
Again, but
So returning the money.
return the money,
Right.
and if you can bring him back and make sure he become the example that no fishy, you know.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it's like literally sentence him and send him to court.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay, so-
for the Adrian Gunadi.
Yeah, well,
and
he's a
everyone
fugitive,
who are
yeah.
involved.
Right.
Because I know for sure that his trauma is still on, you know.
I know this. Talk about no, not a care in the world. I know that. Crazy.
All right. I guess if you're out there and you're a fugitive, just turn yourself.
Oh, by the way,
in.
one more thing. No viral, no justice.
No viral, no
True.
justice. Okay.
True.
So all right, let's make this viral.
This is absolutely true. I
This is
mean,
what we have done our part.
we've done it. Yeah.
We've done our part. And I have zero interest from here. I have zero financial gain from this.
Right.
I'm not paid for this.
Yeah.
But I know that some of the big investors started to call me.
Okay.
So I think if the marketing is enjoyed by the public, the benefit, I think nobody complains.
It's absolutely true. I mean, I've done a few posts recently. I mean, I build local content in Indonesia, and I haven't felt like I've got enough support from the government. And I've really gone on this, and I've got the ministers calling me now, and we need to talk. Yeah. Because I just be honest. I think you need support. If you do, we're doing the right thing, right? We're building a sustainable business. We have 150 staff. We're not burning money. So they should be supporting companies like this.
Yeah.
We've built real innovation. We've just opened in Vietnam.
Right.
One of the first tech companies to do it. We want support. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we're going to wrap.
Yeah.
Just before we wrap, I'm going to ask you, gentlemen, one word for the VCs and one word for the entrepreneurs, one each, as an advice. So all your advice, all your wisdom condensed in one word, one for the VCs, one for the entrepreneurs.
Forward.
Go ahead.
VCs, calm down.
Entrepreneurs,
Don't give up.
don't give up.
I think be cautious
Be cautious
for the VCs.
for the VCs
Be responsible for this.
and be responsible.
All right. Okay. Awesome. That's all for today on Bloomberg Techno's podcast, TechnoZone. A big thank you for Frank Hotepea and Martin Terpilowski for joining us, and to my co-host, Danny Gauthier, for the great insights. We'll be back with more deep dives into the future of tech, finance, and innovation. Stay tuned and see you next time. This has been Bloomberg Techno's podcast, TechnoZone. Thank you.
Thank you.